Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I am currently in Sweden. I'm in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, and I am playing in the Rilton Cup. The Rilton Cup is a tournament with different sections, but I'm playing in the Rilton Cup, which is the section of people rated above 2200. There are some exceptions. Some players are lower rated than 2200 and are eligible to play, but most of the players are above 2200. And since I'm just above 2200 right now, that means that I'm most likely going to play a lot of strong players. And today was round one, and as you can see on the screen, I was indeed playing against someone higher rated than me. So I was facing Jaden Wong Jingyong. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I believe I was very confused when I was preparing what exactly was the first name and the surname of my opponent. I also didn't have so much time to prepare because the pairings were out, I believe, either an hour or 45 minutes before the start of the round. So it was very hectic today. But I saw that my opponent likes to play anything but e4. Well, I believe he also used to play e4, but my opponent is young, and if you're young, you either have one opening you stick with, or you play several, yeah, you can see like a change in when you're playing openings throughout the years, right? So that especially happens when you're young. But anyway, my opponent started with move c4, and that was definitely not what I expected. I was really sure that my opponent was going to play either d4 or knight of 3, so this came as a surprise. By the way, let me know if you like having the eval bar on or not. I'm having it on right now just because, but I already see that I'm getting like feedback on this analysis and I don't want that. So let me turn that off, and I'll also turn this off. Yeah, just give me a second because my game was not live on chess.com, so that's why I'm using an analysis board right now. But anyway, c6 is what I played because I'm trying to get into not the Caro-Kann, I'm trying to get into a Slav. But my opponent forced me into a Caro-Kann. My opponent played e4, I played d5, e takes, d4. And here I thought, I can't believe this, I'm in a Panov. And the last time I played Caro-Kann, well, it's not too long ago actually, but I don't really remember that well how I'm supposed to play this opening. I have seen it a lot. This pawn structure is very common, but it doesn't really happen so much, in my games. So it was a lot of like trying to remember what I'm supposed to do. I play knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3. And here I thought, can I play bishop g4 here or not? Turns out I can, but yeah, I guess it requires a lot of theory that I don't know as of now in this very game. So that's why I went for e6, a more solid approach. C takes, and then knight takes. I thought e takes d5 is a bit too solid. I mean, my opponent has an extra tempo, as in they're playing with the white pieces, right? So if I then have a symmetrical position, I should always be in a kind of worse position or something. Does that make sense? So yeah, I wasn't really like looking forward to that. So I played knight takes d5, bishop d3, bishop e7, short castle, and it's a little scary here on the king side. There's always this bishop takes h7 idea. Right now it's not possible, obviously, because my bishop is covering the g5 square really well. So rook e1 was played, and here I played bishop f6 because I thought I have to do something. But it's really difficult to play here because what about knight e4? Is that something I should be afraid of? There's a pawn hanging, but it gets tricky. If you take a pawn and then have a king that's not really safe here, it can get problematic. But anyway, bishop e4 was played, and here I decided to take on c3. I really didn't like this position for some reason, as in I didn't like that my opponent has attacking chances. I wanted to eliminate any sort of attacking chances as much as possible. I did consider knight ce7 to reinforce this knight over here and protect it very well, but it felt so cramped up. It felt like it was not the right plan. Allowing my opponent to play knight a5 very soon, so quickly and easily. Maybe knight e5 is not so good in that case, but yeah, in the future it could be annoying. So that's why I played knight takes c3, because I thought b takes c3, and if my opponent plays c4, then there's this hanging pawn structure, and I thought that's what I'm kind of looking for here. So yeah, queen c7 is what I played in the end. Turns out that my position is already bad here, so knight takes c3 was not the right move, but it just felt right during the game. I didn't really know what else to do because my pieces, my position is not really. It doesn't feel nice. I need more activity. My development is a bit slacking here. Queen c7 is what I played because I thought I want to prevent bishop f4. I guess I want to develop. I want to protect the knight on c6, right? Knight g5. I saw this coming and I thought, it's fine. There's g6 and there's no knight takes h7 because if knight takes, king takes, queen h5, king g8, and there are no threats as in bishop takes, pawn takes, queen g7, and everything is protected and I just have 2 extra pieces, you know. So I was not worried about this at all. So that's why queen f3 was played instead. Bishop g7 here, I was like, ooh, I really don't like my position for some reason because my opponent is able to play bishop takes c6. Let's say bishop a3 first. I really like this move actually. My opponent afterwards told me he didn't like this move, as in afterwards, after a few moves, he thought this bishop was not doing anything. But I thought it was pretty annoying because after rook d8, I have to play carefully. So here I was afraid of bishop takes c6, and if b takes c6, let's say knight e4, and this knight is just dominating on c5. My bishop is terrible here. And yeah, maybe I get to play some e5, but I feel like this weakness is really annoying. And I think positionally, I'm just in a really bad situation. And I thought this was going to be like squeezed out. The win will be squeezed out and I would be in trouble. But yeah, my opponent for bishop d3, and I was a bit surprised by this because I thought, oh, that's giving me some chances because now my knight is still there and my pawn structure is not quite ruined, and I thought this is the time to play h6. My opponent went for knight e4 and I go f5, and if there's one thing I like, as you guys know, it's pushing pawns. So it felt wrong in this position because look at these pawns on the 6th rank. It feels like the pawns will collapse very soon, but no, I have a hard time seeing how my opponent can really bother me here or disturb me here. So my opponent went for knight d2. Apparently knight c5 is better. I guess it was the move that I was most concerned about, but I thought it should be fine, especially with the bishop here on a3. There's always some queen a5 move in the air, and I was going to play e5 and simply continue the game, but with queen a5 around the corner, this bishop is really bad, and I didn't really believe in white's position, but yeah, I guess it makes sense that knight c5 is the better move, but my opponent for knight d2 instead, and here e5. So obviously, I'm taking control in the center. Queen g3, my opponent is pinning that pawn, and I went for king h7. Turns out queen f7 would have been more accurate to play. I did consider this move, but I simply didn't like how it enables moves such as bishop c4. I have to play bishop e6, and I wasn't entirely sure what to think of this position. But yeah, I guess it's fine, but during the game it didn't feel so nice with this pin as well. So yeah, it didn't feel so useful. So anyway, king h7 is what I played. Knight c4, bishop e6, and here my opponent took on e5. So knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, I take on c3, so now it's even material, and now bishop d6. And here I really, really, really wanted to play bishop takes e5. I really wanted to play this because rook takes e5 is obviously not possible because the rook is hanging on a1. Queen takes e5 is possible, but doesn't make much sense because queen takes and bishop takes, the bishop on d3 is hanging. If rook takes, the bishop on d6 is hanging. So then bishop takes e5 is the most sensible option, and here I have to take on d3. And here I thought queen h4, and something feels wrong. So I'm up a pawn, but the dark squares around my king are really, really permanently weak. Even if we trade queens, a rook will sneak up on the 7th rank, and I'm done for. I thought this is practically lost. I mean, obviously, the computer will say it's fine, and I'm sure many grandmasters can hold this position, but I thought me in this position against a higher rate player, and also I'm lower on time. I can quickly check because the live transmission did not have the clocks, but I can quickly check. It was around this move that I had 13 minutes left. So I thought, yeah, with 13 minutes left, my opponent had about 38 minutes. So yeah, I wasn't really feeling like going for this. It felt very unnecessary too. Because if you think about it, this pawn is an umbrella. And usually it's an umbrella, we use it for pawns that are covering our king. But in this case, it's covering, you know, the bishop is safe here, and this pawn is kind of blocking white rather than helping white. So I thought we just keep the pawn there, it's fine, and we just continued with the development. So rook ac8 was what I went for in the end. h3, I was really surprised by this move because I thought that my opponent may want to be more active with h4, h5, because if you destroy my pawn structure on the king side, then my king will feel very lonely over there. But my opponent went for h3, I was really surprised by this, and yeah, here I took the pawn on a2 because I thought, well, if not now, then when, you know? So I took the pawn, but then bishop takes f5, and I thought, that's a little bit annoying because queen takes g3, f takes g3, pawn takes, rook takes, and we're in this endgame. It's a little bit, I don't know, it feels a little bit uncomfortable. Something feels wrong here. I played a6, rook b1, rook d7, rook b6, rook e8, so I'm defending the pawn on b7, and now I'm attacking the pawn on e5, so my opponent plays rook b2 to take the pawn on b7, giving up the pawn on e5 because the pawn is not going anywhere at this point anymore. So bishop takes e5, bishop takes, and rook takes b7. So here, we're in this endgame. 3 pawns versus 3 pawns. My opponent's pawns are grouped together. My pawns are... I have 3 different islands, basically. So this is kind of a critical moment, I would say. This was move 32, so I did not really have much time, and I was under the impression that if I play rook takes b7, I didn't take this. Take king g6, rook b6. Obviously, I considered king g5, but king g7 is a safer option. Rook takes a6, and I was under the impression that because my 2 pawns are away from each other, and my opponent can push the h-pawn, maybe get rook g6 in, and the king gets closer, and I thought, this is not really a nice position. I don't know. But it probably is still a draw because once this king gets close, rook e2 and the pawn on g2 drops. But I guess that you can maybe put the rook on a2. I don't know. It just felt so unnatural to play this. And if I have other options, why not go for those other options? So I play rook e7 thinking that, okay, if my opponent wants to trade, let's trade on my terms. And yeah. Let's proceed like this. But then my opponent played rook 7, b6, and I thought, oh yeah, that's a move too. And I didn't really quite anticipate that this may have caused so much trouble for me, because now I play rook d1 check, king f2, rook a1, I'm trying to hold on to that pawn, rook f6, rook a5, I'm trying to hold on to the other pawn as well. But now rook bb6, and all of a sudden it's not so clear. I give a check, king f3, check, check, take. So I lost 1 pawn in the process because, well, all my pawns are actually hanging. It's actually crazy. So I gave a check, another check, rook f4, rook g7, king here, check, take, take, take. And now we are in this endgame. So I thought, when I was calculating here, we're like way past move 40 already. So I got 30 minutes added to my clock. And in this position, I'm thinking, okay, I am under the impression that I'm going to lose both pawns because once I lose this one, the other one will also drop. So now it's my turn. I cannot defend, really. I mean, I can play rook a2, but then rook b7 happens and I get pushed to the back rank, and that feels pretty lost. It doesn't feel good. So I thought, okay, king g7, I'm going out of there. Rook takes a6, rook g3. So at least I'm holding on to the h-pawn for now. But obviously that pawn will drop soon too, because h4, rook g1, rook takes h6. I could not defend anymore. And yeah, I was thinking of rook f3, of course. There was a lot of moves that I was considering, but for some reason I neglected this. I guess I was not really having rook a7, and apparently king f6 is a draw. But yeah, I was scared to get cut off for some reason. Yeah, a lot of overthinking happened here. A lot of fears started to show up. Like, well, what if this endgame is losing? What if that endgame is losing? So h4 is played, rook g1, rook takes h6, rook f1, rook g6, king f7, rook g4, king f6, king h6. So obviously, I cannot play moves such as king f5. It's still fine, but the idea is that after rook g8, I cannot take on f4 because then rook f1, rook f8 happens. I mean, and yeah, I either lose the rook or the rooks will be traded and this pawn will be marching forward. But apparently I have to, let's say, move the rook here. And after rook f8 check, king e6, and apparently this is a draw. Do you think this is a draw? Would you think during a game that this is a draw? It's crazy. It's actually crazy. The idea is that after king g6, rook g1 check, the king has to go back, right? So the king cannot really help. So essentially the king is boxed. And if you play, let's say, f5, king e7, you're only restricting yourself more because now rook g8, king f6, and how do you proceed? And apparently this is drawn. So that's good to know. I wasn't entirely sure about this during the game. Yeah, it's not good. Not good at all. But yeah, that is essentially the idea. That you're using this G file to, if the king steps out, you want to kind of restrict that king, and then you give a check, and the king has to go back to the H file. And white is not able to make progress. It's crazy. So for those who have been watching my study streams this year, basically, I went through 100 endgames, you must know. And I remember seeing this endgame, obviously, with the F and H pawn. And I saw how to win this, how to defend this. But I remember seeing exactly that I have no idea what's happening in this endgame, and I need to really take my time for this and look over it another time. And that time is today, because today it happened in my game, as you can see. So during the game, I was feeling really frustrated because I could not remember what pawn formation was drawn and what was winning. So even at this point, I had no idea if it was a draw or not. And that's why I was spending so much time after move 40 thinking, what do I do? Like, what is the idea, and what is this even a draw or not? But apparently this is a draw. I play rook h1, h5, king f7, king g5, king g7, rook g2, and rook h3 is what I played, which is a mistake because apparently f5 and white is making progress. Crazy. My opponent played rook e2, so that was a mistake, so I gave a check, king f5, rook h3, check, and oh yeah, king f8. So this was a mistake. I made a mistake playing king f8. Turns out that you have to play king h6 here. So I'm used from endgames, usually. You have to stay close. So the mindset that I have here is that the h-pawn is essentially useless. The f-pawn is what I should be afraid of. So then I start thinking, okay, what do I remember from Philidor positions? I need to put my king in front of that pawn, make sure that that king of my opponent does not get, close to the 6th or 7th rank. And yeah, trying to prevent my opponent from moving that pawn forward so easily. So that's why I have the idea to play king f8 and really restrict my opponent from moving that pawn forward. But it turns out that in this endgame, you have to play king h6 with the idea that it's still a draw. It's still a draw, and white cannot make progress miraculously enough. So yeah, why did I neglect this? I simply neglected this for the reason that, king f6 and this pawn is moving forward, and yeah, I thought it was just lost. I mean, what is this? f5, rook goes here. What about the king move here? Apparently any rook move on the first rank is fine. f5. Any rook move on the first rank is fine. What about this? King g6, f7, king f6. Yeah, that's rook endgames for you. I guess it makes sense now that I see it, of course, because if you play rook e8, then rook a7 and you lose a pawn for sure. And yeah, you're just gonna get checked on the next move. And king g8 will be met with check. So yeah, that's so crazy. Isn't that crazy? This is a draw. Wow. I'm just amazed, like, how many positions that look so bad are actually drawn. It's crazy. So yeah, I had no idea that that was going to be a draw. So king f8 is what I played, which was the final mistake. Because after this, it's dead lost. Because king g4 was actually on the move. It was either rook h7 or king g4. Okay, it's just basically defending the pawn. It makes sense. King g4, very strong move, because if I play rook takes h5 now, this is elementary endgame. Lost endgame. King takes, king g6, and to king f8. f5 works too, I guess, because this. But you can also play king f6 to have the opposition, and after this, you just play king g7 and you start pushing the pawn. So yeah, that's why you don't take on h5. I have to move my rook. And now rook a7, king g8, king g5, rook here. I finally started to realize that maybe I should move the rook to the other side of the board because my rook is useless on the h file now. So I bring my rook to the 6th rank, but this is apparently already lost. And my opponent is basically shuffling around. And I remembered that I did the 7th rank defense in an earlier Rook endgame earlier this year. But in this case, it's an extra pawn here, which is, which is causing a lot of problems for me. My pawn is moving back and forth, and then at some point, rook a6 I played. I should have tried at least to play rook a1 or something, because after rook a6, I thought I was stopping f6, but turns out f6 is still possible, because if I take, my opponent will play h6. This is what I missed. I saw h6 here, but my opponent for f6, and then I realized, oh, because now rook takes and rook c7, and it's I'm losing the rook. So king f7 is what I played, but rook c7, king g8, king g6, checkmate on the back rank, so I have to cover it, and now rook g7, rook h7, and f7, and that is when I resigned the game. So tough loss. I spent so much energy in this game, and I really fought for my life, and it was heading to a draw. I was doing really well, but it was not good enough, and I definitely made my life really difficult at some point, so I should definitely look at Rook endgames again, because it just amazes me how complicated these endgames get. I'm still trying to figure out what happened. I'm still processing it, but yeah, it was very interesting for sure. It was very interesting, and I mean, I want to say exciting, but I still lost, you know. I can be excited about the loss. I guess it was a very exciting and interesting game. A lot to take away from this game. And yeah, I feel like I put up a really good fight. So somewhere I still feel a bit proud, but I want to do better. I want to do so much better in my next game, and I'm gonna try to do my best in the next round. Tomorrow I'm facing another 2400 actually, which is crazy because I lost, and I'm facing someone higher rated than my first round opponent. So I'm actually playing International Master now. So yeah, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna start preparing, and I'm gonna head to bed soon. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for the support. Make sure to tune into the live streams because we are streaming the tournament. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!